Math Man.
Welcome back, students. It's time again for another Math Man's Algebra Academy video. This one is Chapter 2, Lesson 5, Compound Inequalities. So compound inequalities come into two types. First, you have your AND inequalities. For example, x is greater than 6 and x is less than or equal to 9. You also have OR inequalities. For example, x is less than or equal to -5 or greater than 3. Alright, let's look at the first example. We're going to be graphing the compound inequality on the number line. We have x is less than or equal to 6 and x is greater than 1. So we're going to use our number line. And remember that if you don't have the equal sign, meaning it's just less than or greater than, you're going to have an open circle on the number line. If it is less than or equal or greater than or equal, you're going to have a closed circle on the number line. So let's look at the first inequality. We have x is less than or equal to 6. That's going to be a closed-in dot, and it's going to be right there at 6 on the number line. On the other side, you have x is greater than 1. It doesn't have the equal sign, so it's going to be an open circle there at 1 on the number line. Now we have to look at numbers that are going to satisfy both inequalities. So we draw the line here between the two circles because those numbers are going to satisfy both inequalities. Those numbers are less than 6 and greater than 1. Now for example 2, this is an OR. Graph the compound inequality on the number line. We have x is less than 3 or x is greater than 6. Now in this case we have that OR. So kind of like the oars on a boat, these arrows are going to go opposite ends of the number line. I'll show you what I mean. First off, we have to take the x, which is less than 3, and that's going to be an open circle at the number 3. On the other side, we have x is greater than 6. Again, no equal sign, so it's going to be an open circle at 6. Now the numbers that we're looking for are going to satisfy both inequalities. So it has to be less than 3 or greater than 6. So we're going to have an arrow going from 3 down to -infinity because those are all the numbers less than 3. We also have an arrow going from 6 all the way up to positive infinity because all those numbers will satisfy that part of the inequality. And so it looks like two oars coming off of a boat. Now we have the third example, another AND. Graph the compound inequality on the number line. We have x greater than or equal to 5 and x is less than or equal to 7. So again, here's our number line. We'll start with the first one. X is greater than or equal to 5. So that's going to be a closed circle at 5. Then we have x is less than or equal to 7. So we're going to put a closed circle again at 7. Now, this has to satisfy both of these inequalities. So the only numbers that are greater than 5 and less than 7 would be between 5 and 7. Alright, now let's look at example number 4. We're going to now go backwards and write the compound inequality from the graph shown below. So first thing we have to do is look at our steps. The first step is to identify whether this is an AND compound or an OR. This is an AND because the arrows aren't going off into infinity, positive and negative, they're going between the two circles. Then the second step is to identify each part of the compound. We have the 3 and the 6. So the 3 we have is going to be greater than or less than, but the way the arrow is going positive, so it's got to be more than 3, so x is greater than 3. And as far as the 6 goes, again it's filled in, which means it's going to be with the equal sign, and then we have it less than or equal to 6. Now you put all these things together and we get our compound inequality, which is x is greater than 3 and x is less than 6. Alright students, example number 5, we have solving the compound inequality. Now this one is not in the right format right now because we have too many things attached to the x. So we have to get the x's alone before we can even do anything. So, first thing we have to do is take each inequality by itself and solve it for x. So we have 3x plus 1 is greater than 4. First thing we have to do is subtract by 1 on both sides. Then that gets rid of the 1 and we're left with 3x is greater than 3. Then we divide by 3 on both sides. which gives us x greater than 1. Now let's look at the second one. We have 3x plus 2 is less than negative 16. So we subtract 2 from both sides, and we end up with 3x is less than negative 18. Then we divide by 3 on both sides, leaving us with x is less than negative 6. Now we can graph the inequality. So here's our number line. We're going to put an open circle at 1 and another open circle at negative 6. Now since this is an OR inequality, the numbers are going to be less than negative 6 and greater than 1, giving us those two ORs off the boat. Alright, example 6, this is the last one. Solve the compound inequality. We have negative 11 is less than 4x plus 1, which is less than 1. Now this is a unique style of compound inequalities. This is really an AND statement, but the way they write it is a little weird. We do have to solve this first to get it into the right format. So, first thing we have to do is look at that middle part where the x is. We need to get x by itself, as always. So, the first thing we have to do then is subtract by 1. By doing that, we get rid of the 1 in the middle, and, honestly, to the right as well. So, we have negative 12, which is less than 4x, less than 0. Now we still have to get that 4 away from the x, so we're going to divide everything by 4. By doing this, we get x by itself in the middle, and we're left with negative 3 is less than x, which is less than 0. So now we have to graph it. There's our number line, so we're going to have at negative 3 an open circle, at 0 an open circle, because there's no equals underneath either one of those symbols. So now we have to take the numbers that are going to satisfy both equations. So it's right there in the middle, 0 and negative 3.
Alright students, now you've learned how to do compound inequalities. So if this has been helpful to you, please make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep following the Algebra Academy so you can learn how to pass that EOC. Until next time, keep the math mathing.